The line between science fiction and national security just vanished. Moments ago, at SpaceX's starbase in Texas, Elon Musk introduced a new Secretary of War. And he declared the ultimate goal of the U.S. Space Force is not just defense, it's dominance. This isn't a drill. This is a fundamental shift in how America projects power, and it's happening live. We are breaking down exactly what was said, what it means for global stability, and why this announcement will change your future. To understand the seismic nature of today's event, we need to rewind. The United States Space Force was established in December 2019 as the first new independent military service since 1947. Its stated mission, to organize, train, and equip space forces to protect U.S. and allied interests in space, and to provide space capabilities to the joint force. In simpler terms, its job was largely defensive and supportive, protecting satellites, enabling GPS and monitoring threats. Enter Elon Musk and SpaceX through lucrative government contracts. SpaceX has become inextricably linked to U.S. space ambitions, both civilian and military. Their Starlink constellation, a network of thousands of low Earth orbit satellites, has already proven its strategic value, notably during the conflict in Ukraine. Musk's private company now handles critical national security launches. This blurring of lines between private enterprise and public defense set the stage. The key player introduced today is Pete Hegseth. A former Army infantry officer and a prominent television commentator, Hegseth is a controversial and polarizing figure. He has no formal space background. His appointment to a newly declared role of Secretary of War within this context is unprecedented and legally ambiguous. There is no Senate-confirmed position called Secretary of War. That cabinet title was replaced by Secretary of Defense in 1947. This suggests Musk is either using provocative, symbolic language or announcing a parallel private structure. The location, Starbase, Texas, is also critical. This is not the Pentagon. This is the heart of Musk's commercial empire, signaling where he believes the future of military space capability will be forged in the private sector. Here is exactly what unfolded. Under the South Texas sun, with a Starship prototype as a backdrop, Elon Musk took the podium. He did not mince words. The age of passive space presence is over, he stated. Today, we move from a service of support to a service of supremacy. He then introduced Pete Hegseth, calling him a visionary leader who understands that the next battlefield is not a desert or a jungle, but the ultimate high ground above us. Musk outlined a three-part goal for what he repeatedly called the Space Force, though it remains unclear if he was describing official U.S. policy or a new vision for it. First, he stated the goal is to establish a permanent, manned American presence beyond Earth orbit within this decade, specifically mentioning a lunar base and crewed missions to Mars as strategic assets. Second, he declared the need for space domain awareness and control, which includes the ability to defend allied satellites and, critically, to deny adversaries the use of space. Third, and most explosively, he alluded to offensive capabilities to deter aggression from any terrestrial or celestial origin. Pete Hegseth, in his remarks, framed this in stark historical terms. For centuries, whichever nation controlled the seas controlled global trade and destiny. Then it was the skies. Now it is the cosmos. The goal of the Space Force is to ensure American liberty extends into the solar system, to protect our way of life from those who would seek to constrain it, whether their launch pads are in Beijing, Moscow, or elsewhere. He spoke of space marines and orbital readiness, concepts straight out of speculative fiction, but now voiced from a position of apparent authority. Official responses have been muted but telling. The Pentagon issued a brief statement. We appreciate the innovative spirit of our commercial partners. The mission and priorities of the United States Space Force are determined by the Department of Defense and the Commander-in-Chief. Noticeably, they did not endorse the statements, nor did they deny them. They did not clarify Hegseth's role. A White House official, speaking on background, called the event a corporate presentation, but declined to comment further. The perspectives on this announcement are deeply divided, revealing a major fault line in national security thinking. Proponents, including several retired generals and hawkish policy analysts, argue this bold vision is long overdue. They point to China's rapid advances in anti-satellite weapons and its own stated goals for space dominance. They argue that treating space as a sanctuary has left American assets vulnerable, and that Musk's private sector speed is exactly what the bureaucratic Pentagon needs. We are in a space race for military and economic superiority, said one analyst on a defense network. Musk and Hegseth are just stating the obvious reality. Opposition is fierce and comes from multiple fronts. Democratic lawmakers have immediately called for hearings, labeling the event a dangerous usurpation of civilian control of the military, and demanding to know what authority, if any, Musk and Hegseth are operating under. Arms control experts are sounding alarms. Weaponizing space and declaring dominance is a recipe for a new, terrifying arms race, said the director of a leading non-proliferation think tank. It violates the spirit of the Outer Space Treaty and guarantees our adversaries will accelerate their own programs. It makes conflict on Earth more likely, not less. Internationally, reactions range from concern to outright condemnation. A Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson called the statements proof of American hegemonistic ambitions to militarize all spheres of human activity. A Chinese state media editorial warned that any attempt to turn space into a warfighting domain will be met with resolute countermeasures. European allies, while more diplomatic, have privately expressed unease, fearing this new aggressive posture could destabilize the fragile international cooperation that currently exists on the International Space Station and other scientific ventures. The deeper implication is a fundamental shift in authority. Is Elon Musk, a private citizen and CEO, now effectively dictating U.S. space military policy from his own launch facility? Does the introduction of a Secretary of War suggest a parallel command structure, where a private corporation holds unprecedented sway over matters of national defense? This event blurs the lines of accountability in a way never before seen in American history. So how does this affect you, the ordinary citizen? The impacts are profound, tangible, and multi-layered. First, your tax dollars. Billions already flow to SpaceX for launch services and Starlink development. This new, aggressive vision will require staggering new investments, trillions likely, for new spacecraft, weapon systems, and space stations. This is money diverted from domestic programs, infrastructure, or social services. Your taxes will fund the Starship troopers. Second, your security. An arms race in space does not stay in space. It increases tensions on Earth. It makes conflicts more likely to escalate, as nations perceive threats to their critical space-based infrastructure like GPS, weather monitoring, and communications. The domino effect of a conflict that starts with a satellite collision could be catastrophic for global finance, logistics, and daily life. Third, your access to space. The dream of space as a global commons for science and exploration fades. If low Earth orbit becomes a contested military zone, it raises insurance costs for all commercial launches, stifles innovation, and could lead to restrictive space traffic control dictated by military priorities, not civilian needs. Your chance to one day take a commercial spaceflight or benefit from zero-gravity manufacturing becomes more remote and expensive. Fourth, your digital life. Starlink is a dual-use technology. It provides internet to remote villages, but as we've seen, it can also be a battlefield communications tool. If SpaceX, under this new paradigm, chooses to prioritize or deny service based on U.S. military objectives, it gives a single private company unprecedented power over global information flow. What happens next? Congress will demand answers. The Pentagon will be forced to either embrace this vision and seek formal authority for it, or publicly rebuke Musk and clarify the chain of command. Internationally, treaties will be tested. And in boardrooms from Beijing to Paris, executives and generals are now recalculating their own strategies in response to today's shocking announcement from Starbase. Experts are grappling with the implications. A former NASA administrator told us, "This is the moment the space as a sanctuary paradigm died." The focus is now unequivocally on control and power projection. A military historian compared it to the early 20th century naval arms races, noting, when Britain launched the Dreadnought, it made every other battleship obsolete overnight. Musk's Starship, coupled with this doctrine, is the Dreadnought moment for space. It resets the game for everyone. Legal scholars are particularly concerned. The constitutional issues are a minefield, said a professor of space law. Who does Pete Hegseth report to? Musk, the president? Can a corporation wage war? This creates a legal gray zone with potentially catastrophic consequences for accountability and the laws of armed conflict. Comparisons to similar situations are limited because this is unprecedented. The closest analogies might be the East India Company, which wielded private military power in the 18th century, or the era of nuclear weapons development under figures like Robert Oppenheimer, where scientific capability and existential military power became fused. The consensus among analysts we've spoken to is that this accelerates a future where conflict is inevitable, and that the window for preventing the weaponization of space has just slammed shut. The key takeaway: national security policy is no longer being set solely in Washington. It is being announced in Texas by a billionaire with a starship as the backdrop. Watch for congressional hearings, official Pentagon policy shifts, and rapid counter moves from China and Russia. The new frontier is now officially a potential battlefield. The rules have just been rewritten. For continuous coverage on this and every story that reshapes our world, subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more breaking news.